Story 1 credited to Matthew Hughes. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to things like Randonautica. You know, those apps that take you to random places, promising adventure or mystery. It just seemed like another internet fad, something people did for kicks. I'd heard stories, sure. Creepy ones too. People finding weird stuff or claiming they were followed, but that's the internet, right? People make stuff up. Still, I didn't think I'd actually try it myself. Not until Aaron brought it up. It was a Saturday night. Just one of those nights when nothing exciting was happening, and we were bored out of our minds. Aaron, Kelly, and I were hanging out in Aaron's car, parked outside a 7-Eleven. We'd been scrolling through our phones, passing the time. Then Aaron says, "Hey, let's try this Randonautica thing." I laughed. "You can't be serious." Kelly rolled her eyes, half smiling. "It's probably just gonna take us to some random park or something," but Aaron seemed genuinely interested. He'd been reading all these posts on Reddit about weird encounters, strange coincidences, you know, the kind of stuff that gets under your skin a little. "It's just for fun," Aaron shrugged, pulling out his phone. "We'll let it generate a location, we drive there, check it out, and if it's lame, we move on." I wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but I didn't have anything better to do. And it's not like I actually thought something creepy would happen. I mean, it's just an app, right? So, Aaron punched in the intent. Something like mystery or weirdness, I don't remember exactly. And after a few seconds, the app spit out some coordinates. "Okay, it's not far, like 10 minutes, Aaron said, turning the car back on. "We might as well check it out." We pulled out of the parking lot and started driving. At first it was normal, just your typical suburban streets. Houses, streetlights, nothing out of the ordinary. But as we got closer to the coordinates, things started to change. The streetlights thinned out. The houses became less frequent. Eventually, we were driving down this narrow 2-lane road surrounded by trees on both sides. Aaron turned down the music. "It's somewhere up ahead." I leaned forward in the back seat, checking his phone over his shoulder. The coordinates led to this patch of land, but there didn't seem to be anything there. No landmarks, no buildings, just trees and fields. "Are you sure we're in the right place?" Kelly asked, peering out the window. "Yeah, this is it," Aaron said, slowing the car as we approached a gravel turnoff. There was a rusty old gate blocking the way, but it wasn't locked or anything. It was just kind of there, like nobody had touched it in years. Aaron parked the car and we all just sat there for a second looking at the gate and the dark field beyond it. I could feel this weird tension building, but I couldn't quite explain why. "Well, should we get out?" Aaron asked, but his voice wasn't as confident as before. Kelly shrugged, but I could tell she was on edge too. I guess we didn't drive out here for nothing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to, but I didn't want to be the only one chickening out either. So we got out of the car, and the moment my feet hit the gravel, this cold, uneasy feeling washed over me. The air felt thicker out there, like something was hanging in it, waiting. Aaron checked his phone again, using the flashlight to guide us. "The coordinates are like 100 feet that way." He pointed beyond the gate into the field. We climbed over the gate and started walking through the tall grass. Every step felt heavier than the last, and that sense of unease just kept growing. There wasn't any wind, no sound, not even the usual noises you'd hear at night. Just this eerie, suffocating silence. "Does it feel weird to anyone else, or is it just me?" I asked, half hoping they'd laugh and say I was being paranoid. "No," Kelly said softly. "It definitely feels off." We kept walking, the flashlight from Aaron's phone casting long, eerie shadows on the ground. Suddenly, Aaron stopped. "Look," he said, his voice low. There was a small clearing up ahead, and in the middle of it, a shovel. It was just lying there on the ground, old and rusted, like someone had left it there and forgotten about it. "What the hell?" I muttered, my stomach twisting. "Who just leaves a shovel in the middle of nowhere?" Kelly looked around, her face pale. "This is getting really creepy, guys." Aaron took a cautious step forward, shining his flashlight on the ground. "There's something else." He was right. A few feet away from the shovel was a hole, small, maybe 3 feet wide and not very deep. But inside it, there was something white. My heart started racing. "Aaron, what is that?" Aaron knelt down, holding the flashlight over the hole. At first I couldn't make out what it was, just a weird shape. But then I saw it. A bone. Human, from the looks of it. And not just one. There were a few more scattered around the bottom of the hole. Jesus Christ, Kelly whispered, backing away. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from the hole. I didn't want to believe it. It couldn't be real, right? Aaron stood up, his face pale. We need to go, now. Just as he said that, we heard something. A rustling sound coming from the trees behind us. I froze. Did you guys hear that? Nobody answered. We all just stood there, listening. The rustling grew louder, and then we heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, coming closer. Aaron's phone flashlight flickered for a second, and my heart nearly stopped. Run, I whispered. We bolted, sprinting back toward the gate. I didn't look back, I couldn't. My whole body was screaming at me to keep moving, to get the hell out of there. Aaron was fumbling with his keys as we reached the car, but his hands were shaking too much to get the door open. Kelly was practically clawing at the door handle. Finally, Aaron managed to unlock the doors, and we all piled into the car. He floored it, sending gravel flying as we tore down the road. None of us said a word the whole drive back. My mind was racing, trying to process what had just happened. When we finally pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot, Aaron shut off the car, but none of us moved. We just sat there in stunned silence, the gravity of what we'd seen weighing down on us. I'm deleting that app, Aaron finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, still trying to catch my breath. Yeah, me too. We didn't talk about it after that. We didn't tell anyone. I think we all just wanted to forget it ever happened. But I can't forget, because every time I close my eyes, I still see that hole. I still hear those footsteps. And I still wonder, what would have happened if we hadn't run? Story 2 credited to Jacob Anderson. It was just one of those lazy Saturdays. You know, the kind where nothing's planned, and you're sitting around waiting for something to happen. My girlfriend Emily and I were chilling on the couch, scrolling through our phones, while Dave, my best friend, sat in the corner sipping on a beer. We'd already exhausted Netflix, and honestly, I was getting restless. Dave, being the type who always wants to stir things up, suddenly goes, "You guys ever hear of Randonautica?" I glanced over, a little curious. "Isn't that app that sends you to random places?" Yeah, but it's more than that. You set an intent, and it takes you somewhere connected to it. He had that look in his eyes, the one where I knew he was itching for something weird to happen. I rolled my eyes. Sounds like some Reddit BS to me. But Emily perked up. I've heard of it too. People say it leads them to creepy stuff. Like they think of something strange and boom, the app takes them somewhere that matches it. Dave was already fiddling with his phone. Let's do it. Set the intent for something mysterious. I was skeptical. You've probably heard stories like this before, and most of them end up with nothing happening. But being bored out of my mind, I figured, why not? Dave punched in his intent, mystery, and after a few seconds, the app spit out some coordinates. He showed me the screen and my stomach dropped a little. The location wasn't far, just about a 20-minute drive, but it was out near this old, abandoned industrial park. Not exactly where you want to be after dark. Let's go, Emily said, already grabbing her jacket. I hesitated. It's getting late, guys. Maybe we should do this another time? Dave laughed. What's the worst that could happen, Jake? Come on, don't be lame. Reluctantly, I grabbed my keys. Fine, but if this is just some random field, I'm blaming both of you. We piled into my car, the night already creeping in as the sun dipped below the horizon. The first part of the drive was pretty normal, passing by fast food joints, gas stations, the usual suburban stuff. But as we got closer to the coordinates, the houses thinned out, and the streetlights started disappearing. Soon, we were on this narrow, cracked road surrounded by trees. Dave was still glued to his phone, acting like a GPS. We're almost there, another half mile. The location was tucked away, far from any signs of life. I pulled off the road onto a dirt path that led us deeper into what felt like nowhere. My headlights barely cut through the dense forest that closed in on us from both sides. Finally, Dave said, "Stop here. We're right at the spot." I killed the engine and suddenly the silence hit us. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet, though. It was unnerving, like the kind you get in horror movies right before something bad happens. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "Are we sure this is a good idea?" "Too late to back out now," Dave grinned, hopping out of the car like he was some kind of fearless explorer. I stepped out, and as my feet hit the gravel, I felt it, a weird chill, the kind that runs down your spine when something just feels off. Emily stayed close to me, her hand brushing mine as we looked around. We were in the middle of a small clearing, surrounded by thick woods. No buildings, no signs of life, just trees and darkness. "What are we supposed to find out here?" I muttered, scanning the tree line. "That's the point," Dave said, his voice excited. "It's a mystery. We're supposed to find something." We started walking further into the clearing, our footsteps crunching on the dirt. I was trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, but it wasn't going anywhere. The deeper we got into the clearing, the more I felt like someone, or something, was watching us. After about 10 minutes of wandering, Dave suddenly stopped. "Whoa, look at that." We all turned, and there, about 20 feet ahead, was this old, rusted-out car. It looked like it had been sitting there for years, half covered in vines and dirt. The windows were smashed, and the tires were long gone. What was even weirder, it didn't belong there. There wasn't any road leading to it. "Okay, that's freaky," Emily whispered, clutching my arm. Dave, being Dave, walked right up to it, circling around the car like he was some kind of investigator. "Check this out. This thing's ancient." I stayed back with Emily, feeling more uneasy by the second. "We should go. This is starting to feel wrong." But Dave wasn't done. He crouched down, peeking inside the car. "Hey, there's something in here." "Dude, seriously don't," I warned, but he didn't listen. Dave reached inside the car, pulling out a small, dusty box from the passenger seat. He opened it, and inside was a single Polaroid photo. He held it up to the light from his phone. "What the?" It was a picture of the three of us, me, Dave, and Emily, standing right there in the clearing next to the car. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. "What the hell is that?" Emily backed up, pulling me with her. "Jake, this isn't funny. This is not okay." Dave was still staring at the photo, his face pale. "It's us. It's literally us. Same clothes, same everything." I could barely process what I was seeing. My mind was racing, trying to find a rational explanation. Maybe someone was here before us, took our picture when we weren't looking. "Jake, no one's been here," Emily said, her voice shaking. "This car's been sitting here for years. Look at it." Suddenly there was a sound, like someone snapping a twig in the woods. We all froze, eyes darting toward the trees. "Did you hear that?" Dave whispered. We stood there, silent, listening. Then another sound. Footsteps, getting closer. Without thinking, I grabbed Emily's hand. "We're leaving. Now!" Dave didn't argue. We bolted back to the car, hearts pounding in our chests. I fumbled with the keys, almost dropping them in my panic, but I finally managed to unlock the doors. We jumped in, and I floored it, gravel spraying as we sped out of there. No one said a word during the drive back. The silence was thick, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Dave kept looking at the photo, turning it over in his hands as if he was hoping there'd be some kind of answer on the back. There wasn't. Later that night, after we'd all gone home, Dave texted me, deleted the app. Never doing that again. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things aren't worth the risk. Story 3 credited to Alex Hartman. You know how people always say, "It started off as just another day"? Well, that's exactly what happened. Just a boring Saturday. My friend Noah and I were hanging out at my apartment, flipping through Netflix, trying to decide what to watch. We couldn't agree on anything. I was leaning toward something light, but Noah, being Noah, wanted something creepy. Horror was his thing. I'm not as into it as he is, but I'll admit the adrenaline rush can be fun when it's just a movie. Anyway, we were getting nowhere, and Noah says, "Ever heard of Randonautica?" I looked at him, eyebrows raised. "Yeah, isn't that app where it sends you to random places based on your intention?" He nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Exactly, let's try it." I shrugged. "What's the intention?" He didn't even hesitate. "Let's go with creepy." I rolled my eyes. Of course, you'd choose creepy, but I wasn't going to argue. I was bored, and something about it sounded interesting. I figured worst-case scenario, we'd drive to some random park and get a laugh out of it. So Noah pulled out his phone, typed in our intention, and the app spit out a set of coordinates about 20 minutes away, just on the outskirts of town. Now, we live in a pretty quiet area. Suburban, not a lot of crime. But once you get out past the town limits, it gets rural. Lots of empty roads, trees, old buildings that haven't been touched in years. That's where the app was leading us. We jumped in my car, an old silver Honda Civic with a temperamental AC, and started driving. At first, it was just normal. Strip malls, gas stations, typical small-town stuff. But after about 10 minutes, the scenery changed. We were driving past empty fields, the kind of places where you don't see another car for miles. Noah was buzzing with excitement. This is exactly what I was hoping for. I wasn't as thrilled. Something about the silence of those long, empty roads gave me a weird feeling. The app kept guiding us down narrower and narrower roads until we were driving on a single-lane dirt path, the kind that looked like it hadn't been maintained in years. I was starting to get a little nervous. The sky was fading from light to dusk, and I hadn't seen another car in what felt like forever. "We're almost there," Noah said, staring at his phone. I nodded, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. My phone didn't have any signal by this point, which added to the unease. I was starting to regret agreeing to this whole thing. "You sure about this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He didn't even look up. "Dude, relax. We'll check it out, and if it's nothing, we'll head back." I wish I'd listened to my gut right then. We finally arrived. The app's pin dropped us in front of this old, rusted gate that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Behind the gate was a stretch of overgrown grass and a long, winding path that disappeared into the woods. At the end of that path, barely visible, was what looked like a small, abandoned house. "Holy crap," Noah muttered, his voice filled with excitement. He jumped out of the car before I could say anything. I stayed in the driver's seat for a minute, staring at the gate. Every instinct I had was telling me this wasn't a good idea, but Noah was already pushing the gate open, his enthusiasm practically radiating off him. "Come on, Jake, don't chicken out." I sighed and got out of the car, slamming the door behind me. I followed him. The sound of our feet crunching on the gravel path was the only noise around. The air was heavy, like it was sitting still. The trees blocked out most of the remaining sunlight, casting long shadows over everything. It felt off. I couldn't explain why, but it just didn't feel right. The closer we got to the house, the more I wanted to turn around. It was one of those old wooden houses you see in ghost towns. Peeling paint, broken windows, the front porch half collapsed. No signs of life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Noah, as always, was fearless. He walked right up to the front door, barely hanging on its hinges, and pushed it open. The creak it made was loud in the silence, like the house was protesting us being there. I stood a few feet behind, my flashlight shaking in my hand as I shone it into the doorway. It was dark, but I could make out the inside, just an empty room with a few pieces of old, broken furniture. "Let's check it out," Noah said, stepping inside. I hesitated. "Are you serious? This place could fall apart any second." He turned back, rolling his eyes. "It's fine. We'll just take a quick look." Against my better judgment, I followed him inside. The air was thick with dust, and every step we took made the floor creak under our weight. The place was trashed. Broken chairs, shattered glass, and what looked like old newspapers scattered everywhere. But it wasn't just the decay that freaked me out. There was something about the house itself. It felt wrong, like we were trespassing, not just on someone's property, but into something we weren't supposed to see. Noah was shining his flashlight around, still searching for something interesting, but all I wanted to do was leave. "Dude, there's nothing here. Let's go." But before he could answer, we both froze. There was a noise, faint but unmistakable. It sounded like someone was upstairs. Noah and I locked eyes, and for the first time all night, I saw the fear in his face. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, probably just the wind." We both knew that was a lie. The sound came again, louder this time. It was footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the second floor. My heart was racing. Without thinking, I grabbed Noah's arm. "We need to go, now." He didn't argue. We turned and bolted out of the house, running down the path as fast as we could. I didn't even look back. We reached the car, jumped in, and I floored it, dirt kicking up behind us as we sped away. Neither of us said a word for the entire drive back. The silence in the car was suffocating. My hands were shaking, and I could barely focus on the road. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone or something following us. When we finally got back to my apartment, Noah turned to me, his face pale. "Dude, what the hell was that?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I deleted Randonautica that night, and I haven't touched it since. Noah swears he'll never use it again either. Whatever we heard in that house, I don't think it wanted us there, and I don't ever plan on going back to find out.